Before we do get started, just some housekeeping. Please turn off your mobile phones onto silent or flight mode. That would be much appreciated. The toilets are just here, so men's over here, women on the other side, and of course the exit is there, so if there's a case of emergency, just follow one of us out the either exit here or there. We were planning to live broadcast today's forum, but unfortunately due to the current Telstra issues here in Wynyard, we're unable to do that. However, we are recording today and we'll hopefully put up a copy of today's forum later. If you don't want to be filmed, maybe move yourself up to the back of the theatre. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we are meeting. I ask that we all pay respect to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community and its elders past, present and future. I acknowledge that this land was stolen and never ceded. Always was, always will be. Thank you. I'd like to thank Nick Higgins and Susie Robertson and everyone else involved in organising today's meeting. I'd also like to thank the Wynyard Wharf Hotel, who's allowed us to meet here today for free, I understand, Nick, which is fantastic, as I understood it's a community event and valuable all to us. I'd like to welcome, of course, any elected representatives that are here. I did see Waratah Wynyard Councillor Selisa Edwards, and there may be others I missed coming in, but welcome. And of course we have our candidates here who will be introducing themselves shortly. I'll go through the list. If I've missed one, I do apologise because there's been a couple of latecomers, but we've got Darren Boberman from the United Australia Party, Darren Briggs from the Greens, Craig Garland, who's running as independent, Sophie Lehman from the Jackie Lambie Network, Keown Martin from the Animal Justice Party, Scott Rankin from the Local Party, Duncan White from Liberal Democrat Party. We were going to have Brenton Jones from the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers, but I don't believe he's here. We've got, did Lynn Kershaw here? Yes, excellent. So Lynn Kershaw is here from the Informed Medical Options Party, Independent Senate candidate Fenella Edwards, Australian Federation Party Senate candidate Justin Stringer, and Senate candidate Ivan Davis for the Animal Justice Party. Did I miss anyone? Okay, my job is done for the day. See you all later. No, just joking. Very good. All right, so what we're going to do, of course, the purpose of today's meeting is to hear from the candidates for the upcoming federal election, which is being held on Saturday, 21st of May, so that's 20 days from now. Interesting, today is May Day, so I don't know whether there'll be any questions about that, but that's interesting. I would like to, say, look, we're not here to have personal attacks on candidates, parties, or other people that may be here today. So please keep your questions respectful and try and at least give the candidates opportunity to provide answers to the questions that are provided. You might not agree with what they're saying, but we do live in a democracy, so we'd hope that everyone can at least give them the opportunity to provide their answers. And this, of course, is not a forum to air your personal grievances. Please do that somewhere else. We aim to finish the forum in a couple of hours, but we'll keep you posted as we go along, and I guess at some point we'll reach a point where we've got no more questions from the floor. Each of the candidates will now speak for about 3 minutes, which will give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. And Nick will be keeping an eye on time, so he will start winding you up if you're getting close to 3 minutes. So that's when you know maybe I should start winding myself up. Once we've done that, we'll open the floor to questions, and there's a microphone here just at the centre of the stage, sort of just down there. So please come up and ask your question. Just introduce yourself if you can, that would be great, and where you're from. And then we'll give the candidates about the same amount of time to answer the questions, so 2 to 3 minutes to keep it brief. And you can ask any of the candidates your question, or all of them. It's totally up to you. So we're kind of leaving it pretty open, so you might have a question just for one of the candidates. That's perfectly fine. We don't have an issue with that. I must say and point this out that we don't have a representative here from the Australian Labor Party. Chris Lynch did send his strong apologies. Unfortunately, the Labor Party are having a launch in Launceston today, and that means that all of their candidates were obviously unable to attend. Gavin Pearce just was unable to attend. So I guess you'll leave it up to you what that means in terms of being able to hear from him in terms of any questions you may have had. So we'll start with Ivan Davis. So if you want to grab the microphone there and just tell us a bit about yourself. Right. You have 3 minutes.
My name's Ivan Davis, and I'm the Animal Justice Party lead Senate candidate. And this is different because just a few minutes ago we were down at a rally in Launceston. But anyway, we made it here. Look, I grew up on a farm, and then I was a soldier for a long time. And I used to love fishing, hunting and shooting for my own food. And one day I decided that I wanted to eat duck meat because I'd already killed and butchered and eaten just about every other critter here in the country. On our farm we had loads of dams, and so I took the shotgun and shot at a couple of ducks flying overhead, and one fell down and the other flew down and then flew off. So I retrieved the dead duck and took her home and gutted her, plucked her, and later the same day I was passed by the same dam. And there was this duck flying in circles above where I'd shot his mate, and he was making this sound like I've never heard before nor since. It was a mournful, keening wail, and it cut my heart. And that led me to today, many years later. You see, I found that compassion is hard to find for many of us, but when it does turn up, it changes everything. So that's why I'm here, for those that have no political power, for Australians that don't know what power they have, and for all the sentient beings that we share this country with, I am choosing to stand and serve. And I do so with a very specific agenda that lines up with the values of the Animal Justice Party. And that is, we want more kindness, as much rationality as we imperfect human beings can muster, and freedom and the right to live according to natural behaviours. And finally, I know almost everybody here, we want a whole lot less violence, less domestic violence, less killing, less suicides, less cruelty, and more action to combat global warming that addresses the fossil fuel issue and does not ignore the huge effect of animal agriculture. To do that, we must change our focus to looking after those that do not normally have any voice within our government, the animals and our children and our planet, our home, our future, our tomorrow. Corruption and the lack of integrity has no place in a compassionate society. Thank you very much. And there is no greater threat to our democracy and freedoms than the corruption which is now blatantly obvious in our federal government. If we don't get an independent commission against corruption with power to hold parliamentarians, political parties, lobby groups and the media to account, I know many of us have great fears for our democracy and for our environment, great fears for future generations, for both our species and all the others with whom we share this country. Your vote and one person can change the course. For compassion, for freedom, for integrity, for all animals, including us, please vote One Animal Justice Party. My name's Ivan Davis and I'm your lead Senate candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Lynn.
Hi, my name's Lynn Kershaw. I'm with the Informed Medical Options Party. IMOP was started in 2016 on the mainland. We haven't had a presence here yet in Tasmania until this election. I'm a mother of 6 and a grandmother of 6, and I've been involved in freedom of choice for close to 30 years. I'm a strong believer in freedom of choice for your personal health issues in particular. I'm also very passionate about democracy and about open and accountable government. I've been involved in politics for several years. A few years ago I was with the Australian Democrats, and since then I haven't seen or haven't been able to be part of a party or even know who to vote for. when I go to the polling booths because I just don't resonate with any of them at this point. What I've seen happen in the last 2.5 years has left me gobsmacked with the amount of freedoms, the amount of freedoms that we've had taken away from us and then incrementally given back to us, but with the threat hanging over us all the time that this is going to happen again. We're going to be mandated for this, mandated for that, and quite frankly, I'm over it. It has ruined lives, it has ruined businesses, and it has destroyed families, all because of a mandate, which should not have happened in the first place. So there are many other policies involved with IMOP, so I encourage you to go to the website and have a look at what we stand for. And yeah, basically in a nutshell, that's me, Lynn Kershaw, with the Informed Medical Options Party as your Senate candidate.
Hi there, my name's Scott Rankin. I live on Tommy country and I'm running under the Western system that we use to govern this country. I just want to draw attention to Eva's work. This morning she drew that as her way of saying to the local party what her local issues are. If you're vision impaired, it's an orca coloured in blue with a red. I'll ask the expert. What's that bit?
I've got no idea.
Craig has no idea. So Eva wants the orcas to survive and climate change is very present on her mind. And on the back, the cooey crawl, we need a roundabout at Cam River apparently. So local issues for the local party, we're here to ensure that those issues get to Canberra. I'm not interested in being a politician. I'm interested in passion and backing what I've been backing in Braddon for the last 30 years, and that is young people and opportunity. Preventing the abandonment of the vulnerable in our community. Primary prevention across family violence, health, education, homelessness and young people. Poverty. Poverty, poverty, poverty. Nobody's talking about it. If the profit share of GDP is going up, along with the cost of living going up and wages are staying the same, then it is broad Australian injustice that we're witnessing, driven by the shareholder economy. I'm not a supporter of fish harming. Oh, no, sorry, it's fish farming, is that right? Fish harming, apparently. I'm not interested in equivocating about climate change. If your house is on fire, you don't call the fire brigade and say, look, excuse me, could we have 20% of the fire put out? It's just the front bit at the moment. It's 100% and 100% only. Health efficiencies. The federal government's responsibility, in rough terms, is primary prevention. The state's responsibility is acute care, and they are playing off as though they're playing pool in the local pub. What we need to do is to put the intersection of problems together so that we can get the 60 GPs we're missing in Tasmania. A lot of them are missing on the West Coast and the Northwest Coast. We won't do that if our education system is failing and young people don't feel they can go through to tertiary. There's so many bright young people in Braddon. And yet the flatlining of those young people, the numbers of young people entering tertiary over the last 2 decades is appalling, and it shows a failure across both of the major parties for 2 decades. I want that to end. Braddon is the best place in the world with the cleanest soils, the cleanest air, the most productive land, the most incredible rainfall, and yet we have, across so many statistics, morbidities which are an absolute disgrace. And that is caused by failure by the 2 major parties. It has to end. We have to have somebody with passion who doesn't care about politics and is also a supporter of Craig, who's a great guy, and he's coming up next. But I will say this, no more FIFO politicians, no more pork barrelling and flashing the cash. We want to see that end because we need to build the community first, roads later. I don't want another 4-lane highway near me. I want to build the community and help the vulnerable and stop the abandonment, and that's my 3 minutes, and I'm stopping there. Craig.
I'm Craig Garland. I'm a fisherman, father of 3. This will be my 5th election. The single biggest thing that is stopping us going forward is the corruption. Until we deal with that, you're kidding yourself if you think you're going to get good governance. It won't come about miraculously without us forcing it. This election, we've got a lot of good minor party candidates and independents, And nationally, we need to show the rest of Australia what needs to be done, and that is put the major parties last. Because that's where they've put us over my lifetime. It's been us last, our environment last, our children's future last, and all they care about is their own survival. Every time they're threatened, they conspire together. You look at ICAC, conspire together, they don't want that. The only way you're going to get that is vote for us, a minor party or an independent, and we will make it our mission and sit on the bench with Andrew Wilkie. He is someone of integrity and entrenched in the system, knows it backwards, and we need someone in there alongside him, giving him a hand and also benefiting from his experience. We've got policies on health, housing, fisheries, forestry, and go Garland at thebattler.com. And that was all due to a collaborative arrangement. Around me, my greatest skill is networking. It's not so much what I personally have to offer, but it's those that are around me that I've had the good fortune to work with in my working life. For those that don't know, I started off in the Navy because I needed a bit of discipline. The local headmaster got the parents in and they both agreed, yep, send him off, and it was the best thing they ever did for me. It taught me to get along with a greater group, accept everybody for who they are and what they believe in, and acceptance, whether you're transgender, whatever, this whole issue, everybody should be accepted for who they are and what they want to do and how they want to express themselves. And I grew up in that environment through the 70s and the 80s. You could be who you wanted. If you want to be a clinger at the local football club, you were quite welcome to come in and be that. It's called acceptance. And together we can solve all our problems right here. We have the local skills, the local resources, and we need to take advantage of that old demographic that's in our fishery, in our forestry, in our farming, the proper way to do things, because we've gone full circle. Everything is all about money. That is the overriding objective and motivation with those two major parties, and they need to, and it's an abusive relationship. You look at Braddon, we get knocked up by one, we go back to the other, hoping that we'll get treated a bit better, and they treat us the same, so we go back. Now is the time to send that loud message that it's no longer good enough. So support your minor parties, your independents, wherever your heart tells you. We've got some great candidates, and put them last, because that's what we need to tell the rest of the country to.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate seeing so many faces here at a small local political rally. It's great. My name is Keone Martin. I am the the candidate for Braddon. Senate candidate's over there, he's already spoken. Running for the Animal Justice Party. I have gotten myself involved in politics. Again, it seems to be a running motif here, not because I so much want to, but because I feel like I have to. We obviously have not got the representation that we are looking for inside of our political system at the moment, and I think that, as multiple people have already said, we need to start shifting away from the major parties towards smaller parties who are more focused on getting some of those outcomes that will help the locals. I moved towards the AJP because I see that the way that we run animal agriculture in our modern society has got impacts on a variety of things that are going to cause ongoing problems inside of our nation and our world. Primarily, at the moment, I'm concerned about pandemics and the effect that we have when we have lots of animals in tight, unpleasant quarters, all mingling together, breeding more germs. Additionally, obviously, we have climate change, which, unfortunately, the way that we currently raise our cattle has a large impact on, and I would like to see solutions put in place to minimise the harm that we're causing to wild animals and wildlife in general through our farming methods. We have other platforms as well, but those are the primary ones that have driven me towards this party, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. That'll be it for me. Probably not quite 3 minutes, but I'll call it. Thank you again.
Hey guys, g'day, Darren Briggs is my name. I'm here for the Greens. Thanks for coming. I'm looking forward to being able to share with you some of our thoughts, but also looking forward afterwards to hearing from you, from your questions and things, and learning from you guys. As with many others, I describe myself as an accidental political candidate here for a passion on the issues rather than for a job. I came to Northwest Tassie in 2011, where I was attracted by the natural beauty of the place and also the fact that this is likely to be a place that had a livable climate in 50 years' time for my kids. I'm a doctor. I work in emergency departments, mainly at Mersey Community Hospital, and at times as a GP down the West Coast. I'm also a small business owner. I've got a small accommodation business on the West Coast, and I appreciate how small business has been doing it tough. And prior to all this, I was a small animal vet and also a dairy vet. So I've done a bit of agriculture. I understand about farming and the importance of the Tasmanian brand to our economy, the clean green image, and the importance of food security. But I'm quite passionate entirely about healthcare. In particular, a need for a long-term, ground-up approach to health. I'm sick of this politics. Each election we have promised this, promised that, and health becomes a real political football. We have a crisis in our health system that I see every day that I'm at work, that you probably see when you go to the hospital or you try to get a GP appointment. We don't have immediate answers coming up, and we need to look at prevention. There's no doubt about that. There's one thing with healthcare too that I'm also passionate about, that it needs to be publicly funded and available to all based on need, but not on the depth of your hip pocket. I definitely want to see that structural reform. Yes, the Commonwealth needs to increase its funding to our health system, but we also need a single funder approach to healthcare so that we remove that blame game, that cost shifting, and have a more synchronised, regionally appropriate healthcare system that delivers for the locals in this area. We've got a number of policies on health which you can look at also online. But also as a doctor, I absolutely understand the critical importance of responding to climate change. Climate change is still considered to be the biggest threat to our health this century, according to the Australian Medical Association, the World Health Organisation. And sadly, our current Liberal government only recently went to court to challenge the assertion that they had any duty of care to protect our children from the effects of climate change. Well, they might have won in court, but they didn't win the moral battle, okay? And I certainly know that I have a duty of care to my kids, to your kids, and to future generations to advocate on their behalf. So Greens have and always will stand for comprehensive climate action, there's no doubt about that. So yeah, health and climate change are critical issues this election, but I'm also a community member and I'm fed up of that lack of transparency, the dishonesty, the lack of accountability in our political system. I want to hear truthful, honest answers. I want to have political representatives standing up for the vulnerable, for the young, and for nature which sustains us. Gosh, I've got so much to do. Oh gosh.
You can have some of my time.
So integrity and honesty is so important. And I just, I'm doing this as a father, as a doctor, and as a community member. I just want to remind you that Greens are advocates on these issues, have been for many, many years, and we always will be, and we're not going to be afraid to back down despite the negative impact or the arguments that might come. Greens are about putting people before profits, that evidence and scientifically based, environmentally sustainable, and that improves our economy in the long run. Thanks, guys.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophie Lehman and I'm the candidate for Braddon for the Jackie Lambie Network. I'm a mum of two, I live in Ulverston and I'm a project manager. I joined forces with Jackie because she's 100% committed to the good fight. I once asked her why she got into politics and she told me a story from when she was in the army. She said, "You've got to get inside the tent to take them down." So that's why I'm here. Things could be so much better in Braddon. Our healthcare system is falling apart. Half of the adults are functionally illiterate and our mental health system is at breaking point. Yet we've got politicians swanning around telling us that everything is fine and if we vote for them, things will be better. I heard the new Premier of Tasmania the other day on the radio saying that the health system wasn't a mess, it was just a challenge, as if it was some hobby that he attended to on the weekend while he sipped his gin. There are people's lives at stake here and he's at home thinking that it's just a challenge. I spoke to a voter in Ridgeley the other day who told me about a young woman who was rushed to hospital in Burnie with her wrists slit. 5 hours later, she was still there and they sent her home bandaged 5 hours later. So why was she sent home? And why do we not have the resources to treat her anguish? We've only got the resources to treat her wrists. That's not the problem. Her distress is the problem. Politicians don't seem to care anymore, and people are slipping through the cracks. Like I said, I'm a mum of 2, and I'm worried for our children's future. It makes me sad that our kids are growing up in a world where we seem to have forgotten a few basic niceties, such as kindness, love, and respect. These are the things that I'm teaching my kids, and these are the things that I want to bring back to politics. Last year, the Liberal government paid... Sorry, I've skipped ahead one bit, but I'm just going to go back, because this is a good point. Last year, the Liberal government paid $5 billion for a submarine contract, which resulted in nothing. So my question is, if we'd spent that on the healthcare system, imagine what things would look like now. That was absolutely crazy. Thank you. I've lived all over the world, but now that I live here in Tassie, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. But I'm not naive. I know that we've got lots of problems that need to be fixed. I've worked in the corporate world for around 20 years, and I'm a project manager. So all I do all day is round people up, chase people up, and hold people to account for deadlines. And that's what I'll be doing. Instead of project managing projects, I'll be making sure things get done for Braddon. Politicians have lost their heart and their soul, and politics these days seems to be all about money and votes and power simply for the sake of being in power. Well, you know what? That is not good enough. The Jackie Lambie network is 100% committed to Tasmania. If you vote for one of the major parties, they are being told by someone in Canberra how to place their vote. They are not working for Braddon, they are working for Canberra. As an independent, I'm not running to block things or pass things. My job will be to look at everything and to work out whether it's good for Braddon or not. That's what my role will be if I'm elected. I don't want Northwest Tassie to be forgotten about because we deserve just the same as everyone else. I'm Sophie Lehman and I'm running for the Jackie Lambie Network for Braddon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Darren Bobbenmine. I'm the United Australia Party candidate for Braddon. My background is I am an accountant and I've been in the industry for about 25 years. I have worked in the Queensland Government, Northern Territory and Tasmanian Government. I have worked for Treasury, Health, Education, Police, Fire and Emergency, local government planning. I have worked with quite a lot of them over the years in all various sort of roles as a finance manager, project manager. I have also been finance manager of aged care of a couple of facilities here in Tasmania. I have walked the halls, I've eaten the same food as our seniors. I know or have an idea of what goes on there. I have seen what our nurses go through on a daily basis, the struggles that they go through. I have questioned the food that our aged care serve our seniors. I find it absolutely disgusting how our seniors are treated. I have a lot of care and passion for our seniors. I was very upset to see fish like catfish, bassa, being served to our seniors, processed meat. A lot of food comes out of cardboard boxes and yet they still get a healthy tick from a nutritional value. And I couldn't even eat the food. I had to throw it in the bin and I wouldn't even feed it the dog, and this is how we treat our seniors. And it is disgusting and our government has done nothing about it. And I will fight to protect our seniors. I've also been, thank you. I've also been a full-time carer of my own mother who passed away of cancer, so I know what it's like to be a full-time carer and see the struggles. Again, our seniors need more, deserve more, and our health system needs to give them what they need. Part of the reason I've decided to go into politics, apart from working in government for as long as I have, some of the experiences that I've gone through over the last couple of years as well being a full-time carer, I applied for a G2G pass so that my children who live in Queensland could come and see their dying grandmother. This state government denied my children access twice, and I found that absolutely sickening and disgusting, and it broke my heart and my mother's heart. And this is what our bureaucrats do to us. They've used this last 2 years to destroy lives, destroy businesses, They've kept families apart, you know, hospitals for Queenslanders, hospitals for New South Wales, etc. It's wrong. We're all human beings at the end of the day. Doesn't matter what political party we're in. People up here that I've had time to speak to, they are very good people, and I support a lot of these candidates at what they represent and what they stand for. And I hope that when you go to vote on 21 May or pre-poll, that you vote with your head and your heart. Don't just listen to the predictive programming of mainstream media, who all they ever talk about is Liberal and Labor constantly, every day. And yet I don't see either of those parties represented here today. All I see is all the other minor parties here today being transparent, being open and being honest with every one of you. We're not hiding, we're out in the open, as we were this morning at the Wynyard foreshore, open to everybody to come up and talk to us and ask us questions. Another reason I wanted to get into politics is several months ago. Some of you probably aren't even aware of what the Kirby report is. It's the modelling by Professor Raina McIntyre at the Kirby Institute, which this Tasmanian government has referred to for the opening of 15 December. And I raised numerous concerns with our state government, and I said to them that the modelling was wrong. They wouldn't listen to me. Being an accountant crunching numbers for 25 years, I guess that's something that I've got a bit of knowledge about. As of the other day, we're about 140 days into a 200-day forecast. They predicted 44,000 cases within 200 days. We're now over 3 times that. We're over 140 odd thousand cases. And yet I forecasted that, I warned them last year, and they weren't even interested in talking to me. So, you know, this government has a lot to answer for, and that's why I stand for Braddon. I think Braddon is the engine room for Tasmania. We've got a lot to offer, but we've had a Liberal MP, we have a Liberal government, and we have a state government, and we have a Liberal federal government, and I believe that our Liberal government has failed every one of us. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Fenella Edwards, independent candidate for the Senate. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and particularly the organisers for having us, and acknowledge the Aboriginal people of this area, and indeed Senator Jackie Lambie. Nice to see you here. Now, there's so much I could talk about, and I've got 3 minutes. I didn't prepare anything. I just thought I'd come and open myself to the experience and the questions. But I was born in Hobart, raised in Launceston. I went to Launceston Grammar and then UTAS. I got a commerce degree in marketing and international business and psychology. And then I moved to Canberra and worked for the Australian Bureau of Statistics for 5 years in health, education and Indigenous statistics. So I have a good handle of facts and figures, and I'm very capable of synthesising large amounts of information and presenting it in various ways to various audiences, which I think will be good to take into Parliament to understand what they're talking about. At the moment, this is the first time I've put myself forward to run, and I am an independent. I'm very, very independent. I don't have a lot of money for signs or people to go to polling booths. So I'd appreciate it if you like what I say today, if you could share with other people, maybe like my Facebook page. I've got a sticker up the back with my little Facebook thing there. I think I've only got like 70 likes so far, but I only started it since they called the election. I love animals. I want to give a voice to the voiceless, and that's animals and trees. I want to end old growth logging. Yes, thank you. I think that's important in Tasmania. Do you know they've already stopped it in New South Wales? I was at a forestry event last week and spoke to the CEO of a timber company, and he seemed very positive about my intent to end old growth logging, because he was the one that told me, we already don't do it in New South Wales, where most of our timber comes from. And it's just such a crying shame that these beautiful old growth forests are even on the chopping block, particularly in an environment like the context of the world, where so many forests have been lost already. And the value of these forests is worth so much more in the ground. But on the same token, I think it's important to have a timber industry, and plantation forests are the way to go there. But we need to keep our midst off old growth. I'm very passionate about the housing situation. My own mother almost ended up homeless recently after working her whole life as a nurse. She also had a printing business. And luckily I was able to get her into a home because she's also starting to get dementia. But I know there are people that, like, if she didn't have me, she would have ended up homeless. And for a woman of that age who's worked her whole life, I think it's a real challenge we face. And yet we do need to support older people, and particularly ones that are at risk of homelessness. There's lots of things I'm passionate about. Literacy and numeracy would be great to increase that in Tasmania. I know we've got less than half our population is literate and numerate. And intergenerationally, it's hard for those parents to teach their kids. So maybe investing in some online resources, some games to make it fun, to make kids want to learn would be good. I don't know.
That's about it.
Okay, cool.
Got
Thank
3
you.
minutes. You did well.
Hello, I'm Justin Stringer from the Federation Party. Now, we're a very new party. You probably haven't heard of us before, so I suggest you actually go do some research and look us up online as well. We're actually been formed from many different minor parties recently. Minor parties that have obviously never going to go back to any of the major parties, so we are starting to come together to form more of a sensible middle party there. We believe in the freedom of speech, we believe in freedom of movement and religion, we believe in freedom of choice, body autonomy, and the protection from any unnecessary government surveillance as well. We believe that since 1975, since our government has signed over to the Lima Declaration, that this country has actually gone downhill ever since. We've seen ourselves lose our jobs, all our manufacturing, most of all our manufacturing is gone. You know, now that we have no cars, we have no choices to do other things on top of that in the future. We've lost our skills. We've got no skills for the next generation as well. All our work and skills have gone overseas. Policies. We do have policies online as well, which includes a Bill of Rights policy. We believe that a lot of our human rights have actually been lost, and we've seen that in the last couple of years as well. We believe Australia is the only Western country that does not have a legislated or a Bill of Rights, a constitutional Bill of Rights. We also have policies on defence, animal welfare, climate, more accountability for politicians. So we believe that politicians and representatives should be up here once a month, right in front of you, up here every month, answering questions, what they've done in the last 30 days, and they're just going to be an open forum for any question that you want for your representatives, because they get paid good money to do their job, and now they need to answer back every month as opposed to every 3.5 years to try to get your vote. We need to know what they've done in the last 3.5 years, what not they can promise just before an election. Okay, so we want to simplify our tax system as well. The more complications they put into systems like this is actually the more ways to cheat the system as well. We want to very simplify it. And international corporations, obviously we've got policies on that as well, because these international companies come into our country as a guest, and they should actually abide by our laws and our rights, and they should actually respect our country. So we want to tell the corporations, you're a guest in our country and you should pay your fair share of taxes and whatnot. We are opposed to any of the biometric tracking, a cashless society that is actually on the verge of a cashless society within years, any social credit system that's actually already been used in China as well. The overreaching of spying ability of our government as well. At the moment, they could even take over my Facebook account and use it to talk to my friends pretending to be me at the moment. You know, this is actually abuse of power, and they should not even have this sort of power. They make excuses of why they should have the power, but this is an overreach. We do know that the major parties are to blame for what's been happening over the last 40, 50 years. As I said, since the Lima Declaration has been sent, we've just gone downhill in this country, and it's just going to go, there's no way we can get out of it unless we actually address that corruption that has actually been in the actual ranks, the corruption that's in all the departments as well. So it's not just the parties, it's actually it's embedded in government itself. And you need people up there who know who they're dealing with and the principalities we're dealing with as well. Okay, people who know who to target as well. Because until you fix that corruption, all these other things won't actually happen ever. So we believe in our basic human rights that have been actually taken away from us, and once we get those rights back, the freedom of speech, the freedom of everything, then the society itself will actually then push itself Again, get rid of green tape, red tape as well, so businesses then obviously can survive in the future as well. If we want to build up our manufacturing, it's one thing just to give money to private companies and pick private companies here and there to give money to, but it's another thing to these companies to have a ability to actually grow. We need to actually have cheap, reliable power for these companies, otherwise the manufacturing will never get off the ground at all anywhere in Australia. We do not actually focus on the priorities that these companies need as well. So that's the Australian Federation Party, and I suggest that you look us up with our policies. They're very sensible policies. We actually believe that we want the choice to come back to the people. We're more grassroots, and we believe that every state with our party is very different, because Tasmania has Tasmanian needs, so our party and our policies in Tasmania may be very, very different to Queensland, and that's because it always comes from the grassroots. Our policies are actually made by Tasmanians for Tasmanians. Victorians will write their policies for Victorians. And that's what we believe in, as local as you can get it. So thank you very much.
That was great, mate. Really similar. So I'm Duncan White. I'm for the Liberal Democrats, or Lib Dems. Sorry, it's really confusing. Nothing to do with the Liberal Party. So we're libertarian. That is really similar to liberal, classical liberal, which is sort of the source of the confusion. But one of the things I like about Lib Dems is they sort of come from a very principled approach. They believe in what's called the non-aggression principle. Most of us would agree with that in our personal lives, when we're meeting strangers in the park, that sort of thing. So Lib Dems really want to apply that to politics as well. So fairly radical approach to removing power. So they just try to apply that to politics. So, for example, what I'll do is I've just got 10 points from our Freedom Manifesto. Really recommend you look it up on our website, ldp.org.au, to get a bit more detail. But point 1 is freedom from COVID alarmism. Now, that's not to suggest there's no such thing as this pandemic, but we have been really alarmed just in the last 2 years of the radical violation of human rights. So for some people, they might want to, some people are really concerned for their health, and they absolutely have a right to take precautions, but some people want to take more risks, and people should be free to do that. Recall elections is point number 2. If a politician goes mad, we should be able to recall that. Debt and deficit, so we want to take an immediate 10% cut in government spending, with 1% per annum after that. So, and I think that's probably worth pointing out, that sometimes that sounds scary, and a few of us here are really concerned for the environment, but Lib Dems just see that freedom often, or maybe you could say government is often the problem for those sort of, those environmental problems, like we have an increase of inflation, and I don't mean the cost of living going up, although that's bad, but we have heaps of money printing going on at the moment, and that's causing people to over-consume resources that they otherwise would not be able to afford. So we're sort of big on that. Point 4 is low taxes, a higher tax-free threshold, 20% flat rate tax, voluntary superannuation. Small business is point number 6. That is really about reducing a lot of red tape for small business, trying to allow the market to regulate itself. Point 7 is cheap and reliable energy. That's not necessarily to suggest that the government should choose the answer for what energy is required in different places. Point 8 is decentralised education, removing power for government to and promoting more choice in education, removing protectionist sort of ideas. Point 9 is free speech. So we want to put that free speech would be enshrined in our the Australian Constitution. And point 10 is freedom from mass surveillance, just that warrantless searches and that sort of thing. should be not, governments shouldn't be allowed to do that sort of thing. So as you can hear, that sounds really radical, and sometimes that's really scary, but we just sort of realise that really government is a monopoly on coercion, and they're the problem in so many areas in our lives. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Duncan.